Today is day 12 of my 30-day SQL query challenge, and the problem that I have taken today is one of my favorite in this whole series. Now, as you can see, we have been given this problem statement. So we have been given a graph which basically indicates the hierarchy of employees in a company. Okay. Now we need to write a query to split the hierarchy and show the employees corresponding to their team. Okay. Now, if I explain a little bit here, you can see that I think we have 10 different employees. Each of these basically represents one employee. So at the top, you have Alan. He probably is the CEO or the manager or whatever. Under Alan, there are three managers, as you can see, Ira, Brett, and Earl. And under Ira, you again have two employees, James and Driv. Brett again has an employee under him, that is Mark, but Mark is again a manager, and Mark has two more employees under him, okay, Phil and John. And then Earl has one employee under him, that is Omid. Okay, so this is basically the hierarchy. Now, just by looking at this, we can say that this probably here on the left hand side is one team. The middle layer here, what you see is basically one more team, and the last one here is another team, right? So three teams, right? So in the output, you can see that we have two columns. There are three different teams, and under each team, you have these employee names mentioned here. Okay, so in the team 1 there are 5 employees, and the team 2 3 employees, and the last team 3 has 4 employees. Okay, and remember, each of these team has ln in them. Okay, so this is basically what we need to do. I hope you understand the problem statement. Now, as part of this challenge, as you already know, you should be able to download the data set and the problem statement and everything else from my blog as well as from my Discord. Try to solve it yourself, use any database of your choice, and then share your solution in the Discord server and help each other. Okay, now I will be solving this problem using the PostgreSQL database, and I'm using the pgadmin tool. Now, as you can see, I have already created the table. The table name is company. It has two columns, the employee column and the manager column. There are 10 employees mentioned here. It's basically all the employees that was given in the input graph, right? And their managers are mentioned in the manager column. Okay. Now you can see that the first record, that is for the employee Ellen, there is no manager. It is basically null because that is the root node here, the main element, that is the CEO here, Ellen. Okay. Now, how do we solve this problem? Now, at least from what I understand, in order to solve this problem, I need to do two things. Okay. One, I need to first identify how many teams are actually there in this given hierarchy, right? And then for each team, I need to add the members who belong to that team, right? Now, the solution should also work such that even if there was a change in this hierarchy, let's say there were more teams added or some employees were removed or any other changes, the solution should basically work. So the first thing that we need to come up is the identify how many teams are actually present, right? Now, how do we know how many teams are present? We can see that on the left hand side is one team, on the middle hierarchy what you see is the second team, and the last part here is the third team, right? In other words, any direct employees under the main element. So all the direct employees under Ellen basically form one team, right? That is what we can identify from this graph, right? So if we can write a query such that we first find the root node and then we find the direct employees under the root node, then how many direct employees that root node will have, those many teams will be created, right? So that is the logic that I'm going to try to implement using SQL. So what I'll do is I'll take this query, and here in order to find the root node, I can just tell where manager is null, right? So if I run this, I will get the main element or the root node, that is Ellen, right? And then I can take this employee name Ellen and try to search for that employee in this whole table again and under this manager column. So hopefully I will get the 3 direct employees, right? So how can I do this? I can basically do this by using a self join, right? Now, in order to do a self join, what I'll say is I'll just tell select star from this company. I'll give an alias like, I'll say root, okay, to keep it more meaningful. This is my root table, okay. I'll join it with again the same table, but I'm going to give an alias for this like mng for as managers, okay. Now, when I put this filter condition, I know that my first table here will only fetch one record, right? And from this one record, I just need to take the employee of that record, and then I need to join that employee with a manager field from the other table, right? So I can just tell on root dot employee, okay, so that is in under this record, this particular value root dot employee is equal to, from the manager table, I want to match this here, right? So from the manager table dot manager. Okay, so hopefully this should get matched with 3 records. Okay, so these 3 records should probably get returned. Okay, now, and I think in order to return the values, I'm just going to say from the manager table, I want to fetch all the employees. Okay, and if I just run this, I'm getting an error. Let's see what the error is. Manager is ambiguous. Okay, so here I should say it is root dot manager as null, right? Now if I run it, okay, now I'm getting Ira, Brett and Earl, and it's basically this Ira, Brett and Earl. These are the direct employees under the root node or ln, right? So that means I have 3 teams, right? Tomorrow if there were more teams added, this query would still work, right? So now I have the employees, okay, but I also need to give a team name. So what I'll do is I'll use a concat, okay, and I'll say concat this with team because I want team 1 2 3, right? So for each row it should be a numeric value, right? So I'll say team space and then I want to concatenate it with a unique number. So I'll use the row number window function. So row number over, I'll say order by the same thing. I'll just copy this manager. Okay, so I'll put it here, and this whole thing I'm just going to call it like, let's say teams. If I just run this, now you can see that I'm getting the 3 teams that I wanted. Okay, and one of their employees or one of the members within the team is already mentioned here. Okay, now this is fine. So I have basically got one part of my solution. The second solution is once I know the team, then I want to scan through each of these different hierarchies. Whenever you want to scan through different hierarchies in SQL, a very good solution is basically to use recursive SQL. So that is what I will be using. Now in order to use recursive SQL, we will be using the with clause. I'll say with recursive CTE as, okay, and then I'll need to write my query here. Okay, now first of all I need the base query. Now because as part of recursion you need first the base query, then you use a union, and then you mention your recursive part of the query, right? Now as part of the base query, what do I actually need is I want to start my recursion. Let's say if I query this company table, I want my recursion to start from here. Okay, start from the main element and then go one by one. So I take from the main element, I take the employee, I try to match it with the manager here. Then whatever employees I get, I take them. And then for each of these employees, I again search in the manager field if they are managers and try to get their employees, and so on and so forth. Okay, this is how you try to find all the employees under each manager in different iterations. Okay, so this is what I will be doing. Now, first of all, I need my base query to be something like select from company where I will say the same condition, that is where the manager is null, right? I'll put that here. Okay, so that I can fetch my first record, and here I can just tell, let's say employee, okay, and maybe I'll give an alias here, C. Okay, so I'll say C dot employee, and this will be C dot manager, and here I'll say C dot manager. Okay, if I run this, I will get the first record, I will get the employee and the manager, but my intention is I also want to get the team, that the team to which this particular employee belongs to. Okay, so I also want to know what is the team, right? Now, from where can I get the team? The team I can get it from this above query that I have written, right? So probably I need to use this query somewhere inside here, right? Now I have 2 ways of doing that. Either I could join with this whole subquery, I could put the whole subquery here, or I could put this whole subquery as another CT. Okay, so that is what I'll do just to keep it more neat. Okay, so I'll put a comma here, and maybe I'll move this little right, and here I'll just tell CT teams as, and here I'm just going to put that subquery. Okay, now, and then let's say on the outmost, I'm just going to put my main query, that is select star from city. Okay, so this is basically what I will do. If you see here, this whole subquery, which is going to give me the different teams, I'm naming it like CT teams, and I will be using it in my main recursive CT. Okay, now I'm using PostgreSQL, so this will actually work. That is, you can refer to a CT even if it is defined after it was referred. Okay, but in some databases it might not work. In that case, you might have to use this whole thing as a subquery here. Okay, or you could put this whole with clause on outside this whole query. Okay, so you could do that modification, but in PostgreSQL this actually works, so I'll use it as it is. Okay, now I'm using the CTE teams. I want the team name. Now this CTE teams, I know that it has two columns, employee and the team name, right? And let's say I'll give an alias like T. Now the thing is, when I run this query, that is from fetching from the company table where the manager is null, I will get the root node Ellen. But I know that Ellen is an employee, that is the main employee, who is part of every team. You can see here he's part of all the three teams, right? That means ideally, instead of just fetching one record here, it would be good if I could somehow modify this such that it fetches three records. Okay, so that this same employee can be tagged to all the three teams. Okay, and I know this subquery here returns me three records, one record for each team, right? So what I could do is, instead of doing a normal join, I could do a cross join here. Okay, now if I do a cross join, first I don't need to provide a join condition. Second, every record from this company table, that is basically where manager is null, will join with every other record from the CT teams subquery, right? Now once I do that, then I can just say t dot teams. I know that t dot teams, there are three teams that we saw previously, right? So I think this is fine. Now just to better understand if it actually I'm getting the data that I want, I'll just run this. Okay, now you can see that I'm having Ilan and I'm having all the three teams. He's tagged to all the three teams because I'm using a cross join here. Okay, and there are no managers. Okay, so I have got one part. Okay, so basically I have got something now. Okay, now from here I need to recursively iterate through all the other employees within that company, right? So for that I'll say union. Okay, and then here I need to write my recursive part of the query. So I'll say select star from, I need to again fetch from the company table, I'll call it C, and I need to join it with my CT, because as part of recursion you need to use the CT here, right? That is how the recursion will actually happen, right? Now how do I join this? So what am I doing is, so remember this three data set. Okay, so remember that this is the CEO with the three teams is tagged to. Okay, and then in my main company table, you can see that I have this record I have already processed from the base query here. Next is I need to match this employee with the manager in that whole table. Okay, so when I match it, I should be getting these three records. Okay, this one and this one, these three record, right? How do I do that match? Here I can put a join condition saying that from company join city, such that I take, so from CT, I know that it is this first record. So I'll say CTE dot employee is equal to C dot the manager column. Okay, so I'm matching this with these three here. Okay, and once I match it, I want to fetch the fields. How do I fetch it? I fetch it from this whole company table. So I say C dot employee, then I say C dot manager, and then what about teams? Now again, I want to get the teams for these three employees, right? In order to get the teams, I can again use this subquery, right? So what I'll do is I'll just join with this teams and I'll call it like T. How do I join it? I know that T has employee column and I need to join that with the employees here, right? So I'll say C dot employee. Okay, and then here I can just tell T dot the team, right? T dot teams. Okay, so I think hopefully this should give me something. Let's see if it actually works. So I will just run the whole query. Okay, and maybe I'll just comment out this part so that I can basically execute the whole query at once. And if I run this, now you can see that I am getting for Alan three records. He belongs to all the three teams. And then the direct employees under Alan, Earl, Brett, and Ira, I'm getting their manager as well as all the three teams. Okay, they belong to. That is fine. But the only problem is I missed some of the other employees. So I'm basically, the number of records are reduced. Initially, I knew that the company had 10 employees, but here I'm getting information only about 4 employees. So I lost some of the employees. The reason why I lost those employees or those records are missing is because of this CT. Because in this CT, if you remember, we had only these 3 employees, right? And here I'm doing an inner join. So the join will only match for these 3 employees, and that is why all the other employees who are not present in these teams, I'm losing them, right? It's basically not fetching in my final output. So what I should do is, instead of doing an inner join, probably I should do a left join, right? So that even if I am not having those employees in this teams subquery, I should still want to return them in my final output. Okay. Now if I just run this whole query, now you can see that I'm getting 12 records. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can clearly see it. Just to make it more better for you guys to see it, what I'll do is I'll just move this to the right here. Okay, let's see if this will be better, and I'll just move this here, and then let's say I will just move this to the right. Okay, so I hope this is more better. Okay, probably yeah, I think that should be fine. Now if I run the query, you can see that I am getting all the 12 employees. Okay, the only thing is these teams that I have taken from the subquery, I'm not getting the teams for these 6 employees. Okay, why? Because when I was finding the different teams, I only took the direct employees under the root node. Okay, or under the main element, that is 11. Okay, so for others I have not found the team yet. Now how I can find that is, so whenever I am trying to fetch the team for all the different employees here. Okay, so I'm trying to find the team for the root node, that is for the first element in the base query. Then for all the other employees, I'm trying to find the team here, okay, in this particular part of the query, right? Now here what I can do is I can put a case statement saying that case whenever this is not null. Okay, so whenever I'm processing the employees, let's say Ira, Brett and Earl, I know that these 3 employees are present in my teams subquery, so I will get the teams for them, right? So that means when I join it with my subquery, CT team subquery, I will get a corresponding teams value, right? So if this teams value is not null, then I want to directly take the teams that I get from the subquery. Okay, but let's say if I don't find anything, that means if the teams is null, that is for these records, okay, because for these employees they are not there in the subquery, then for those what I should do is, let's say if I'm processing James, when I'm processing James, ideally what I should do is I should take James manager, that is Ira, and I should try to find this manager in the previous records that were written in the previous iteration, right? Because James will belong to the same team as Ira, right? And I already know the team that Ira belongs to. So if I could take the manager of that employee and if I could match it with the employee from the previous iteration and take their team, that will be the team of James. And I should do that for all the records here, right? So what I could do here is, if it is not null, I take the teams as it is, as I get from the subquery that I have defined here. If it is null, then I do a condition here. One more check. Case when, I can say like case when, that is from this record, that is the C dot manager is equal to, from the previous iteration, that is CT dot employee. Okay, if this is a match, then the teams will basically be from the CT table, CT dot teams. Okay, and then I'll end the outer case as well. Okay, that's it. Okay, and I think that's all. And let's say maybe I'll just move this here and I'll call it like as teams. Okay, and if I run this, now you can see that I am getting the teams information for all the employees. So for James is managed by Ira. Ira belongs to team 3 and that is why I'm getting that. And the same thing for Driv and for Mark and Omid and all others. Okay, so this is basically the right output I wanted. Okay, so this is one way of solving it. Now, in fact, I can actually make it more simple. That is, I don't even need to add this case statement here. So what I could do is I can comment out this part. Okay, and here I could add a callis saying that saying that whenever I'm not getting the teams from the subquery, okay, if it is null, then I can directly take the teams that I've got from the previous iteration, because in the previous iteration, so every time I'm processing an employee, that employee's manager will already be processed in the previous iteration, right? So if I can directly take the teams that the manager belong to, that will basically be the team that this employee also belongs to, right? So I can also use the callis here and I can call this like as teams, and I think I will still get the same output. Okay, as you can see. Okay, so this is basically the solution to find the teams of each employee. Okay, I hope you understand what I was doing here. Okay, now this is not how our output should be displayed. Our output should be like a comma separated value. For that, what I could do is I could just tell employee comma, I could use the string aggregate function, and then I could say not the teams. Okay, so first of all, here it is teams, and then here I need to say employee, right? And then my separator should be a comma followed by a space, and this is what I'm going to call like members. Okay, and I want to do a group by the teams. Okay, because I'm using the string aggregate function. Now if I run this, now I'm getting the data. Maybe I will just sort it order by teams, and if I run this, now you can see that I'm getting the 3 teams. Team 1, it has 5 employees: Ellen, Brett, Mark, Phil, John. Team 2 has 3 employees: Ellen, Earl, and Omid, and team 3 has Ellen, Ira, James, and Riff. So this is basically my solution to this particular problem. I hope you like this problem. I hope you understood my solution. If you have any questions, make sure to ask them in the Discord server. Okay, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow with another interesting problem. Bye.